Critical thinking is learning to think twice about the evidence in front of your eyes and to ask what is really going on in the world. If you look at being a student today, you are confronted with almost infinite information on screen. You are bombarded with feeds, fake news, opportunities. How do you engage with this? For me, critical thinking is one of the key skills for coping with an information age, and also for what makes people skilled, unique, and valuable in an era of disruption, automation, and tidal waves of possibilities sweeping away much that used to be certain. If you're improving critical thinking as a student, you are becoming a more discerning consumer of information. You're becoming better at differentiating between good and bad sources, and also you're becoming better at the fundamentals of making arguments, coming up with explanations, and asking how to get to grips with a subject, how to express your own ideas, and take away something of value that belongs to you, rather than just parroting other people's words and desperately trying to make your way through endless reading lists. If you look at lecturers today, more and more people are coming into education with higher and higher expectations. And a lot of people feel overwhelmed. They feel that so much is expected of them, and yet many students are not confident in the basics of researching, of engaging with ideas, of being autonomous learners. And what I hope this book does, above all, is it's something you can trust to take students of all types and give them confidence as autonomous thinkers and researchers, so you can get on with teaching and you can let them worry about how to learn, how to think, how to put together the basics and start getting stuck into the good stuff. When I'm imagining future readers of my book, apart from imagining there being absolutely loads of them, I like to think, first of all, about someone aged 17 or 18 who's very bright, but maybe the first person in their family to go to university, probably on a social science degree, but perhaps they're studying psychology without having much of an academic background. I like the idea that this book is a friend to them. It says, this is how you can start to think systematically about learning. This is how you can think about organizing your study time. This is how you can think about organizing your time and attention when you are constantly distracted and bewildered by social media and options and opportunities. So I hope this book will hold your hand and give you the confidence to dive into your subject and start thinking for yourself, even if you haven't got a deep background in study. Another person, I like to imagine that someone who's doing an MBA, someone at a business school, a lot of education, but maybe they haven't thought about the fundamentals of learning, what it means to understand, to critique, to take apart other people's arguments and ideas and then put them back together again. I like the idea that these are skills that business craves today. The skill to think analytically, to think outside the box, to think beyond automated systems and templates, and that when you're doing something like an MBA, you can make the case that this kind of independent, critically engaged thinking is just what you need to thrive in a digital age. And finally, especially from when I was researching the book and talking to people, I like the idea that for a lot of people who are medics, who are harder scientists perhaps, even in biochemistry, in physics, this could be a book that helps them get to grip with some fundamentals. People who are working in narrow fields can be really enriched by thinking about where the scientific method as a whole fits into their world and what it might mean for them to test the boundaries of assumptions in their field, to think again about why they are doing this, what it might amount to, and how they might collaborate, how they might link up from the silos of their expertise to others working across a whole spectrum of fields with the same underlying interest in talking more richly about what is really going on. So I've done 6 trade books, and I've been lucky enough that between them they've appeared in, I think, more than 30 languages around the place. My first book about video games, Fun Inc., short for Fun Incorporated, did quite well in the English-speaking world, but it also led to me doing a talk at TED. Chris Anderson read it and was kind enough to invite me to give a talk that 1 million people have now watched, or slightly over. And I found that book in America, but also globally in China, Australia and the Middle East, has been cited a lot by people interested in the psychology of human-machine interactions, the science of engagement. In fact, it was even cited in a Supreme Court judgment, the first ever judgment they passed around video games. So in a small way, that book has helped feed and define some of the debate around games, engagement and the psychology of technology. And one of my more recent books for the School of Life, called How to Thrive in the Digital Age, has had the most translations of all my books. I believe it's done particularly well in Germany, in Spanish, in Portuguese, in Brazilian Portuguese, Turkey, China, the Middle East, editions in things like Persian and Hebrew and so on. And I've been very happy with that book because it has led to me doing a lot of working and speaking around what it means to use technology well. I've worked with people like Google, Facebook, Twitter, worked with companies like Mercer, McKinsey, consultancies, World IT Congress, stuff at venues ranging from the Sydney Opera House to the House of Commons in the UK. And I found a great hunger among corporates, but also the general public, for thinking more richly about technology, critically engaging with what it means to do things well today. And I guess I found an ongoing hunger for that, and the appetite seems to be increasing. So I'm very excited about the possibility of building my SAGE book into my public speaking work, my broadcasting, and my sort of corporate and advisory work, where people have this great appetite for tools that will help them more richly and successfully to engage with the 21st century and its technologies. If I was talking to an MBA student, and indeed I've been a guest faculty member at the SSAGE Business School in Oxford and done management acceleration and leadership courses there, I would say that today more than ever, disruption is the rule rather than the exception. You don't even know what job you are going to be doing in 20 years' time, let alone what tools it will involve. And so the transferable skills you need to prove your worth in this world are those of critical thinking, are those of analysing systems, adding value, creativity and insight, working richly and well with others, and evaluating information systems. And I hope that this is a book that will be a companion to people who want to get better at thinking, reasoning, assessing evidence, managing their own time and attention, and engaging critically with the fundamentals of business and technology and human collaboration in the 21st century. I think we need to focus more and more on these skills where people will remain powerful, vigorous, active in the workforce in decades, rather than the narrower skills where people are being put out of work or the work is being transformed beyond measure, even in the immediate term. And when it comes to special sales, my most recent book that I did for Penguin, I tended to sell a lot of it at each event I did. Google bought hundreds of copies when I was going around some of their campuses running workshops and things like that for them. And generally speaking, when I'm giving corporate talks, they like to have a stack of beautiful books to give out. So I'm very excited about the possibility of tying in special sales to what I do, particularly through my speaking agency and broadcasting. Just in the last week, I've done a big event in London for Samsung. They've invited me back to go and do some board level stuff with them. I've done some work in Berlin yesterday with McKinsey at their recruitment event for global graduates. And each of these people are wanting to have, tangible takeaways. And I talk about critical thinking at these events. And I believe there's a real opportunity to build this into the speaking calendar, as well as to do kind of trade events. I've done pretty much all the kind of book fairs and things like that in the UK, and many of the European ones, from Edinburgh and Oxford and Hay to Frankfurt and elsewhere. So I'm very excited about the idea of building this into a speaking calendar and making it part of the proposition I like taking to companies, to events and to people, and saying, well, look, if you take this away, I promise it will make you better at thinking. When it comes to social media, I find that more and more today, a book is like an opening salvo in a conversation, and people love the opportunity to talk back, to be listened to, and to do something that comes directly from the author and that fits directly into the flow of their lives rather than that's sort of imposed on them according to some pre-decided plan. With my Live This book, which I did for Penguin and which is now in 7 or 8 languages or something like that, I discovered to my pleasure that because it was such a beautiful visual book, on Instagram and Twitter, the hashtag around my name and Live This Book had hundreds and hundreds of people sharing pictures of their book from around the world, together with, well, often nice shots of coffee and food and fabrics, because that's how you make things look good on Instagram, but also ideas and aphorisms and quotes. And I'm really hoping that that kind of organic engagement will grow up around the hashtag for this very beautiful book. So I suppose I have a permanent social listening strategy where I'm not constantly broadcasting on social media, but I am listening, joining in, responding to, and trying to encourage conversations, trying to encourage sharing, and trying to learn from that about what people want. So I've organised a lot of events already through social media, and it tends to act as an amplifier for anything you're doing. You can, of course, capture content, hang it all together with a hashtag, and then see where people are, how they're using the book. And I'm lucky enough to have a moderately high social media profile with 7,000 or so followers and a lot of contacts among more influential people who have enjoyed the book. And a nice big up from Grayson Perry on my Penguin book because he liked it and enjoyed doing it. And I'm hoping that with the new book, I'll be able to get into conversation with some interesting people who, like me, are passionate about where these ideas and this kind of thinking can go. When it comes to social media and the critical thinking book, I think it's really exciting that there is not a finished, final, locked down strategy, that there is a process of putting out some great, exciting content in the form of video, in the form of audio, in the form of quizzes, but also then listening and reacting. And there is, in particular, just one hashtag, a kind of universal hashtag, Talk Critical Thinking, which doesn't exist yet, which is unique to the book. And so anything that happens around that must in some way be related to the book after it comes out. And this can exist agnostically across social media platforms, from Facebook and Twitter to Pinterest and Instagram and so on. And my hope is that this will allow me to listen along with SAGE, to join in, to learn about how and where the book is fitting into people's lives, sparking their interest, coinciding with other things, and that it will become a kind of continuing conversation in which, as new content is pushed out, as events and reactions accumulate, all of this is just linked in seamlessly via this hashtag to the book. But at the same time, I can tune into conversations, be receptive to people, trace what they're doing, and try and make things better, and try and understand the reception of the book, the real opportunities for more content and updates down the line, and above all, just see where a book like this fits into the flow of people's lives and reading. And I have, I guess, this underlying belief that a really successful book knows its place in the flow of people's lives and study, and that it fits in seamlessly alongside their social media use, alongside their other habits. And that if you can get into that place in people's lives and be a part of their habits and routines, then you're in a very special place for learning, building relationships and conversations.